snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys! So I am here today to do a book review, and the book that I'm going to be reviewing for you today is The Winds of Khalakovo. This is the first one in the Lays of Anushka series, which is by Bradley Beaulieu. I've read one other book by Bradley, which is the 12 Kings book, and I really loved that book, so I was very hopeful going into this, although I had heard that this was maybe not as accomplished as that book because this was his earlier series. I will say, to start this off, this is a complicated book. Don't go into this if you want a really light fantasy read, because it isn't that. It definitely has a lot of layers of complexity to it, and it was something that I think took a while to get into. At least until over the halfway point. I was a little confused about exactly who was who, what was what, but I did eventually wrap my head around most of it, and I'm sure that the rest of the books in the series will explain everything else that I haven't quite got my head fully around yet. This series has a slight steampunk airship focus on it, which is quite cool. It's set in a world where there are lots of different islands, and people travel between these islands using airships because the wind currents are pretty interesting in this area of the world. I was pretty interested in how steampunky this was going to be because I've only read a couple of steampunk books, but I've really enjoyed that style. I would say that this is more Sky Pirates than it is steampunk, but it's still pretty epic, so that's cool. When we pick up this story, we are following a division between two different types of people. We have the landed, who are the people who came to the islands and invaded, and who rule over it now. And then we also have the Araman, who were the indigenous people of the islands. And the third people that we have are the Maharat, who are revolutionaries. They do not like the regime that the landed have at the moment, and they are very against it, so they're kind of political revolutionaries. We also follow the story as a plague has started attacking the people in this world, and it's called the Wasting, and they seem to essentially waste away. At the very beginning of the book, we're following the meeting of the 9 dukes, where all of them are coming together to discuss the problems in the land and hopefully resolve some of the issues. Probably some of the decisions that they make at this meeting are going to change the face of Khalakovo forever. Of course, things don't always go exactly as planned, and as we follow the story, we see that some of the political tension is a lot worse than we had imagined initially. Some of the things that I really liked about this book is that it's complicated. It is a complicated book. I'm going to go right out and say that. It's not an easy read and it's not an easy ride, but it is a very interesting system when you can get your head around it. We not only have political stuff going on, we also have different factions of people, and we also have magic that is quite interesting to this world. Whilst I don't think that this book is a really strong 4-star rating, I did give this a 4-star still because I did really enjoy this the whole time I was reading it, and I think complicated books can work really well if they're still interesting and exciting, and this book is complicated but it's still interesting and exciting even though it's complicated. That was still fine for me, and I have quite a high tolerance for complication in books because usually I find that by the halfway mark or just after that, things start to get explained, and I do think that is the case in this book, and we start to really wrap our head around it a bit more as the second half rolls in. The characters within this are all pretty interesting. There are a few characters who particularly stood out to me and that I liked reading about. Those were Anaconda, Rahada and Atiana, who are the main 3 characters in my opinion. The 2 ladies, Rahada and Atiana, are both very strong characters when they needed to be, but they also have very sad moments in their history and in their past. Particularly, I found that Rahada did. These are good female characters. I wouldn't say they're the best female characters I've ever seen done, and I wouldn't say that they're as strong as Cheda in the 12 Kings book, but they are still interesting female characters, and they have the capability to be empathetic and also to be strong and powerful when needed. I will say that Rahada did shift loyalties a few times within the book, and I wasn't sure if that felt as genuine as it could have done. I also felt like she was a little bit more focused on the love aspect than I maybe would have liked, but these are sort of small quibbles rather than actual big complaints. I also liked Anaconda. His storyline wasn't as exciting to me at first as the other 2 because it doesn't contain quite as much magic, although later on it does. So I wasn't as connected to him, but I think he's still an interesting story, and I think that when we get to see how he meets the magic of this world, I liked that a lot, and I liked seeing how he dealt with what was going on, because there were some pretty tricky situations, both politically and magically, to navigate. The magic of this world is pretty cool. We have a lot of different things going on. We've got these strange sort of elemental creatures, and we have the dark, which is kind of a magical in-between trance world, and we also have the rift, which is a kind of place between worlds. We also get looks at various mystical creatures that seem like they come from various magical sources, and so there is a lot going on and a lot to take in all at the same time. The world itself was pretty interesting. I love the idea of these big mountainous islands where you have to travel from one to the other using airships, because that's a pretty cool mode of transport, and the visions that I was getting whilst reading that were really awesome. It's a pretty cool setup, and I think it lends itself to treachery and debacle happening all over the place, and that's exactly what does happen. So I like that a lot, and I think the mystery elements really helped to keep me interested. Even when I didn't fully understand what was happening, I was still very interested and very eager to keep reading the book and discover exactly what was going to happen next. Overall, I will say that I did really like this book, and I battled between 3 stars and 4 stars for a while, but I just really enjoyed this. It definitely has flaws, and you can certainly tell that this is one of his earlier works, because 12 Kings, in my opinion, is a much more accomplished book as a whole, but I really liked this, and I just found it so interesting, and I think this has a lot of potential. So I'm hoping that the next 2 books in the series really wrap things up well and explain things a bit more and give you more detail and get everything a bit more emotional, and I'm sure that that is going to be the case. So fingers crossed, and I'm hoping to read the second book in the series fairly soon. The other thing to note as well is that the audiobook, I actually listened to some of this on audio because I got the Kindle audio deal where you get both of them at a reduced price, and I definitely enjoyed the audiobook a lot, and I think it really helps to have someone pronouncing the words in this, because a lot of the words are very foreign in terms of the style that they're written in, and in terms of the sound of the word. It's quite different to English. It doesn't sound like English at all. So having someone else read those aloud to you was really helpful and really helped to immerse me in the world a lot more. So I'd highly recommend the audiobook too. I'm so mixed on this, but I really enjoyed it as a whole. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Please do leave comments below. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.